Hi, my name is Charlotte, and this channel is about my attempt to become moderately competent at drawing. This week I'm going to be talking to you about my continuing adventures in figure drawing. If you'd like to see the story so far, I have a playlist of all my previous videos on this topic, which I'll link in the description box down below. For various reasons, this month I have not had the amount of time I expected to do figure drawing. As a result, I felt kind of frustrated all this month because I didn't feel I was making very much progress. That said, towards the end of the month, just in the last few days, things have started to come together a little bit, and I'm pleased with the kind of work that I've been doing. The thing that was most affected by my lack of time was my kind of ongoing project to improve my gesture drawing and my ability to do longer form drawings of 30 to 40 minutes. I really only managed to do 2 longer form drawings, and I did them before I had made any really substantial progress on learning to draw the torso. So they didn't turn out particularly well, and they both really suffered for my rendering skills. With gesture, I had a little bit of a crisis of confidence this month. I have been working mostly on 30 to 60 second gestures since the beginning of the year, and I was starting to feel a little bit more confident of my ability to do them after doing quite a lot of exercises and quite a lot of practice. But during the course of this month, I was increasingly critical of the things that I was drawing. I feel like they've become very stiff and disjointed, and they don't look very human. They look like stick figures. I would say overall that my month from a gesture point of view was very unsatisfactory, and unfortunately I have no neat resolution to that because it remained very unsatisfactory all month. I do think, however, that as I began to make some progress on drawing the torso, I can see how that's going to carry over, particularly into the longer form gestures. So my main project this month was to investigate drawing the torso in more detail. For a while now, I felt like I didn't really understand what I was looking at when I was trying to observe and draw the torso. And so I felt that a period of concentrated study would help me achieve at least a basic grasp of the anatomy of the torso. I have to admit, it's always been kind of opaque to me what it is people mean when they say they are studying anatomy for art. Like, what is it they're actually doing has never been very clear to me. I chose to do a series of things, and I honestly have no idea whether this was a good or efficient approach to take. It's just the approach that I took. What I mostly did was to start with some study, that is reading books, watching some videos. Then I progressed from there to doing draw-overs on my iPad, trying to identify specific features I had learned about on specific models. For this, I used an extremely muscular, lean model, someone who looks like he's never skipped a day in the gym ever for any reason. I got this pack from Graphit or Graphite, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Every muscle is super clear on this model, so that was really helpful. I also copied some diagrams from books and then tried to recreate those diagrams without the book open. So I kind of did a whole series of exercises just to try to familiarize myself with this anatomical detail. And then finally at the end, I moved on to just looking at models, starting with very lean, muscled individuals, and then moving on towards individuals where many of those structures are less visible. I'm really happy with my outcomes from this. I really felt for the first time that I was understanding how to wrap the anatomy around the basic volumes that I was drawing in the month where I focused on forms in particular. Just briefly, I'd like to touch on the resources that I used. One thing that I used is my subscription to the Love Life Drawing Study Group. They do a different topic every month. This month they're looking at hands, for example, but just recently there was a torso month and I had therefore a class and some exercises I could refer to from that. I also have 4 books that I use to various degrees. I will say that all of these books are expensive, especially if you buy them new. Except for one, I bought all mine secondhand, and I actually spread those purchases out over 2 years. I don't think you need to have 4 books if you're just starting out. My 4 books are Michael Hampton's Figure Drawing, Design, and Invention. This one is extremely widely recommended. You've almost certainly heard of it before. I really liked this because the diagrams and the approach really made sense to me. I just recently, as in the last 2 weeks, got a copy of Valerie Winslow's Classic Human Anatomy. This is a really dense book. I just barely skimmed the surface in the time that I've had with it. It is full of diagrams and text and explanations. It's very, very detailed anatomy to a point where I'm not sure I'll ever need the level of depth that it goes into. The third book I have is called Figure Drawing by Jake Spicer. This is actually not an anatomy book, it's a general figure drawing book, and I originally purchased it for the more general figure drawing content. However, it does have a section at the back which is full of more simple anatomy details. I really liked this. I thought it was very useful, but it's probably a better purchase for the entire package of the book rather than simply just for anatomy studies. My last book is this one by a French author. The English translation of this title is Anatomy for Sculptors. There is an English version of this book, but it tends to be really expensive. So I decided to buy it in French. First, because I speak French, so it really doesn't bother me. But secondly, because actually, even if you didn't speak a word of French, it really wouldn't matter. There's so little text in the book. The advantage that this book has over any of the others is it's the only one to show actual pictures of human beings rather than just diagrams or drawings. If I had to pick only one or two books, I would say the Hampton book first, and then the Valerie Winslow anatomy book would be the most useful. Of course, there are hundreds of other anatomy resources on the internet that you could look at. These are just the ones that I'm aware of and have used. Even though there was a lot more information in these books than I covered this month, I think I'm actually going to move on from focusing on the torso rather than continuing to dive deeper into it. I have this idea that it's probably better to focus on a series of different figure drawing topics, try to learn a few things, spend some time practicing and cementing those ideas, and then later returning to the topic when I have new questions that I'm looking for answers for. So that's the idea anyway. I guess I'll see how that goes. My plan then, anatomy-wise, is to focus next month on the arms and the legs and try to become more familiar with those. And I'm also going to keep going with those longer term projects of improving my gesture drawing and improving my longer pose drawing. Meanwhile, next week I'm going to be back to talk to you about the extremely busy month I've had playing with digital tools for drawing and painting. But for now, I hope you have a great creative week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye for now.